While we were in Bulgaria, we rode the Septemvry Domeništi narrow gauge train from Bansko up to Velengrad, and I want to show you some of the journey here. It's about a 3-hour trip, and the train went probably about 25 miles an hour on that trip, and enjoy the sights here. The trip from Bansko to Velengrad by automobile is probably about an hour and a half to an hour and 15 minutes, but by the train it's about 3 hours. Part of this is because the train's only going about 25 miles an hour. I think it approaches maybe 40 in part of the trip there, but it also takes a lot of switchbacks and spirals to climb the mountains, so it's backtracking a little bit, as you can see in this view, but that makes for a great trip, just going up and down the mountains. This picture here is showing the track side of the Bansko train station, and that's where we picked up the train. It arrived at around 2:30 p.m. We got there probably about 45 minutes or so ahead of time, and they had a little lunch counter there, and we got some lunch and sat there in that little kind of the little breezeway area and ate our sandwiches. It was probably around 80 degrees, so it was a good day to take the train. This train station of note is actually bigger as far as its size goes than the train station here in Richmond, Virginia, as far as the facility goes, that handles significantly more traffic. This was a nice little train station for this rail line here. I may have mentioned that this was a narrow gauge train. Well, here are pictures of the tracks. There's actually 3 of the tracks here, and these are 760 millimeters wide, or just shy of 2 foot 6 inches. It's actually 2 and 5 and 15/16, so just shy of 2.5 feet. This is in comparison to the train tracks on a standard gauge train, which is 4 foot 8.5 inches. So these tracks are a little skinnier. What you're looking at here is one of the control towers that's built behind the train station. And this is a single track rail line, so if a train is traveling in the other direction, it has to switch tracks at the train station. So what the controllers would do is they'd sit up there in that tower and watch the trains and switch them to the different tracks so they could pass each other. And later in the video, there was a train that I'll show you a picture of where there was paused at the station while I was waiting for our train, which was occupying the tracks. So nowadays, things are a little bit more automated, so this control tower was not active at the time, but it's still in place, and it's still a pretty cool architectural piece of the rail line that I just had to get a picture of there. Here is a photo of the actual train as it arrived here. As you can see, the train is definitely smaller than a typical train that you may be familiar with, and it runs on a standard gauge line. This train sort of reminded me of a larger version of a toy train or a model train. You see those little small rail cars there. It actually reminded me of the old Lionel set that was my Uncle Johnny's there. The cars were short, so they could make those bends through all those switchbacks and curves. And the locomotive, which you'll see in the video up here, is a 1,600 horsepower, and it's a hydraulic diesel locomotive, not a diesel electric, which is common. It uses hydraulic drive to the traction wheels, not a electric motor like a lot of the modern ones do. And it was put in service in 1965 when I looked it up. The rail cars were from 1970, but in the next slide here, you can see the arrival of the train, and as we walked up to the train to get on it, and you can enjoy the sights and the sounds here in this motion video next.
Yeah, that's ours. That's pretty cool, huh?
Here's the inside of the train. You can see Andrea sitting there with Samuel and myself in the next slide, and you can see the size of the interior of the train and what it looked like inside there. You can see that their seating arrangement was 1 by 2. You had 1 seat on one side of the aisle and 2 seats on the opposite side. And the rail cars were just sort of bare metal inside, pretty basic, but they had very comfortable seats in them. And you could hear the clickety-clack inside, as the next slide shows, of the riveted steel rails and such. And it kind of feels like you're going really, really fast on there, but as you can see, when it passes a car there, We were moving along at a modest speed, probably about 25, 30 miles an hour there, and that was one of the faster parts of the trip. But enjoy looking at the beautiful Bulgarian countryside and some of the little small towns and villages in the next videos and slides here. These are some still pictures that I took on the rail trip between Bansko and Roslaug, which is our next stop. And the train station there looks very similar, but that mountain in that first slide there is over 9,000 feet tall and made for some gorgeous pictures here as we chugged along on the train in between the two cities. Very spectacular views.
Come on. Motorhome or semi truck.
One of the cool things about this train is that you could walk between the rail cars and you were out in the open when you did. There was no like accordion buffer or anything. You were just right out there in the open. As you see in this portion of the video here. One of the other amusing things about this is that this train, the toilets flush right onto the tracks below, and that was to great amusement of the boys while we were traveling in the train there.
That's pretty cool going through the tunnel, isn't it, Victor? Thought that was really neat.
Tunnels were a very fun part of the trip. The boys absolutely enjoyed going through the quick tunnel, and we even watched some of them at the back of the train. These were there were several tunnels as the train kind of switched back and spiraled around the track itself, took you into the mountains.
Now we're in a tunnel,
and so that was just one of the cool. There were several tunnels along this trip. just really neat going in and out of it. And really made for just another cool part of
There
the
we go.
train.
Now we're back out. That was cool. What did you see? I might not be able to see it from here. Did you see the actual tunnel? There we go.
Go.
Yeah, I got video of that. That's
Oh.
neat. Oh, that's cool.
This here is Avramovo. It is 1267 meters above sea level, which is about 4,200 feet in standard American measurements there. And this was the highest point in the rail line's route. One of the interesting things about this was it was a little bit cooler up here. Well, we started out in Bansko there, and it was about 80 degrees. By the time we made it up here to Avramovo, it was probably maybe 70 degrees. And then as we traveled down to Velengrad, it was back up to around 80 degrees again. But as we got higher in elevation, we gained about 1,000, probably about 1,500 feet more in elevation here. It got cooler, obviously, and it was some nice views up here on top of the mountain. A lot of people hike to this part and just go to this peak just for the enjoyment of it. But you can see here, it looked really nice up there. One of the fun parts I enjoyed about this trip is seeing all the animals that were being raised by people, the sheep, the cattle, and there were horses too, and all kinds of different animals that we saw on the trip there. And here we are at the back of the train there as we headed back towards Bansko. I took the boys to the back of the train to watch the track there at the back end. You could actually see the track and such. And it was also probably getting close to about 7:30 or so, so we got a great, spectacular view of the sunset as it set over the mountains there as we traveled back to Bansko. And it was just a nice, relaxing day. It was a lot of fun taking this trip.
A wonderful song, Blind Guardian, Lord of the Ring. Yeah. This is spear, big stick and like spear.
Yes.
Yeah, you know,